another video on medical marijuana and you. I had a lot of questions about the different means of ingesting medical marijuana because a lot of people, believe it or not, cannot smoke marijuana. You may ask yourself,
I've watched a lot of Cheech and Chong movies. I've seen a lot of that 70s show. How in the world am I going to ingest marijuana without smoking it?
I'm glad you asked. Find folks at a lot of, through different horticulture, through different years of experience, they found a way to take the plant and distill it down to its components. In that case, with that in mind, they've come up with, what I'm holding here is a Pax Era vaporizer. What you'll use that with is one of these little handy tools. All right, it's a Pax Era vaporizer. I do believe these are proprietary. Now, they do make a different type of vape. This is a chemical vape. Now, when I say chemical, calm down, dear neighbor. When I say chemical, it just means that they used a chemical to draw the THC and resin out with. What you're left with is a live resin. When you heat it up, it vaporizes using the water vapor in the ambient air, which here in Louisiana we're blessed with a lot of, and it produces a water vapor / THC cloud that you inhale. This, you don't have to inhale like the old movies. No huffing. All you have to do is inhale and exhale. With the Pax 3, all you have to do is take a puff and let it out. Didn't even give off much vapor on that one. But it is a very useful tool for when you want to take a puff and medicate and you don't want to alert your friends or get everybody upset, or if someone may happen to be allergic and you don't want to give off any offending terpenes or cannabinoids. We're going to show you another vape because some people prefer and can use a different type. This is a screw-in vape cartridge that'll work with any type of vaporizer you may have used. If you're a person who used nicotine vapes in the past, as long as it has a socket that looks like this. This is called a 510 thread, and that's what you're going to ask for if they ask you about specifics. Most will simply ask, do you mean cartridge or screw-in type? Remember, cartridge, screw in. There are also other methods of vaporizing, which I'm going to show now. One is a dry flower vape. All right, a dry flower vape is where you actually purchase flower, cannabis flower in its raw form, and then you grind it up and you place it inside the chamber. It's called the oven. This one is made by a company called Pax 3. You can get them all sorts of different types. I don't endorse anything. I will say this is one heck of a great product though. They don't give me anything for that. But when you press down and flip it over, I've already packed some flour in here, all right? And it's just the simplest thing. What this does is it heats up slowly, just as these heat up slowly. And it takes the flour and it does something to it called decarboxylation. That's a real word. I didn't think it was real either until I looked it up, but it is where you, through heat, shake off the little extra bit of carbon that we don't need on the end, much like a little Lego brick. Now we free up the studs, and now it can connect with our receptors in our brain. So now it goes from THCA to THC that we can use. And you just breathe it in, and it's very relaxing. It's a slow onset though. Now, that brings me to our edibles. Oh boy, there isn't anybody I've ever seen who hasn't had some kind of funny edible story. Because no one likes to wait for edibles to take effect. And a lot of people don't read the packaging very closely. gummies. So that's why I'm gonna go over the packaging very closely with you, because if you have a mathematics background like I did, and you look at some of this, you might glance over it a little too close and read 1/4 as 1 to 4. 1/4 versus 1 to 4. We'll go over that. Without further ado, let's talk about everybody's favorite gummies. These are candies that are, and you can get them sugar-free too, folks, for those of us who suffer from diabetes, or, as Wilford Brimley told us, diabetes. You know, I pronounced that wrong for all of my childhood. Thank you, Wilford Brimley. Anyway, you simply take the cover off. I'm gonna show you one now. We're gonna give it a little second in case this is something we have to put on a separate video. Now, if you look inside the packaging, your packaging will come with the readout of how much THC is in each gummy. Now, this is particularly important to pay attention to. This is where the fun stories get made. Because when people don't pay attention to how much is in each gummy. These gummies are formulated for 40 milligrams of THC per gummy. Let me put that into perspective for you. Each marijuana joint that you will smoke might contain, at its best, about 1 to 1.5 grams of THC. If we're talking about 30% THC infusion or THC cannabis flower, that's a hefty flower. And if 30% of that 1.5 grams goes into you, then you're talking about roughly 500 milligrams. Now that's if you smoked an entire joint. Imagine smoking an entire joint by yourself. Now that would be 500 milligrams of THC. So this is almost 1/10 of that in just a bite. So you've got to be careful. Most of the time, what you should do with a new edible before going out and doing any activities that require a lot of complex thought, and these warnings are all over the packaging, make sure you take this at home and see how it's going to affect you. And I would definitely start with fractions of a candy and work your way up. It's important when you take it, you have to wait about 30 to 40 minutes before you notice any effects. If after 30 to 40 minutes, maybe then try a little extra dose. Again, follow your doctor's recommendations and always follow your gut. Start low and go slow. Now, that brings me to our last edible. This is what is called a dablicator, all right? The dablicator is an edible that allows you to simply dial up how much resin you would like and then plunge down on the plunger, and you will squirt out the end live resin that can go directly. You can just squirt it under your tongue. You can put it in coffee. You can put it on any type of food you're about to eat or ingest. Either way you wish. It can also be inhaled using extreme heat. That's called dabbing. We'll get into that later on if that's necessary, but I believe you would really benefit from this product more from a edible standpoint. But it is very versatile and it is highly concentrated, and I'm going to show you how to use this as well. All right, so now let's get into unboxing and packaging and showing you how each of these work. A lot of these, what we're going to be doing is relying on our handy dandy camera, our action camera. Here you see all the information will come on the packaging. These packagings, I tell you what, we're going to try this PAX Era first. What you see here is the PAX Era cartridge. I'm going to get a good shot of this up underneath here. All right, we're going to take our battery and we're just going to insert the cartridge. It doesn't matter whether you do it this way, whether you do it this way, or this way. It will slide right on in. We push that in there. And when we're ready to take a puff, that's the genius and beauty of this, it is measured, metered. You can't overdo this one. It is as simple and elegant as they come. This cartridge is significantly more expensive than the screw-in cartridges, but through my experience, it is the one that is most easily tucked away, unobtrusive, and all you have to do is simply take a puff of it. The second type of vape cartridge we have is a screw-in type of vape cartridge, also known as a 510 thread. Now these are a little bit easier to get into. You just simply take the seal off the top. Coincidentally, if you are a joint smoker and you like smoking joints, all right, and you're using these vape cartridges because you're going someplace where you don't want to be giving everybody else your marijuana smoke, I'll tell you, these make great joint holders because they're pretty darn watertight. So I'm a reuse materials if you can kind of guy. The seal can be easily broken, as you can see here. And this gives us a nice screw-in cartridge. All right, my battery's a little fancy, all right, but as long as it has this little socket, most of the Willow batteries that you find or the other batteries are long, thin batteries. You'll see them in convenience stores, cigarette shops. But you take the silicone off the bottom, and it's important to save the silicone. Let's show these. The small one, of course, goes on the little one. The reason this is important is we want to keep oil from drying out, because if left to the air, this will begin to oxidize, and what you'll be left with is a very harsh hitting vape. So let's go ahead and you simply screw it in clockwise. As you look down at it, is how we want to go, or righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. This one, my battery gives me a nice little indicator when it's ready, and we're ready to go. In this case, all you do is you press down and take a puff. It is not necessary to hold this stuff in. In fact, I do not recommend that. As it is potent. Holy crap, that's potent. Good goobly goo. Here we have the Dablicator. And as promised, we're going to unbox it. All right, so as we look at the Dablicator, you'll notice it says it's a full spectrum super lemon haze. To get into this box, I find that the easiest way to get into these boxes is just to rip into them. Honestly, they're almost impossible to kind of navigate with the childproofing. Sometimes you read the childproofing and you follow the instructions to the letter, and you just cannot manage it. It's crazy. But often the best way is just rip right into it. None of this packaging is super necessary for keeping as far as keeping the freshness of it. The only thing that keeps fresh is cartridges. You want to keep those silicone covers that go on either end of your screw-on cartridges. You want to keep those. All right, once we get the packaging, get through all of this packaging on our Dablicator pen, we are left with this product right here. This one comes from Good Day Farms. All right, let's get a little wide angle shot of it. This, in this syringe, is nothing but pure THC live resin gel. What's gonna happen is when you take the cover off, what you do is you twist. We twist. Let's get another close up there. When we take the cover, make sure you take that off. I've seen people literally try to do this without taking the cover off, and it's pretty neat. They ended up with about, giant gob of product sitting up in a cap. That was real fun watching them try to get it out. Because we're not gonna waste product around here, are we? Anyway, let's get into this. The trick with this is to remember, when you twist this up, we're going to twist clockwise to get our scale divisions up. Now, I recommend no more than 2 full scale divisions, all right, at any one given time to anybody who's going to utilize this for edible purposes. So what we do is, if you can see here, we can twist it down to get the plunger down, clockwise to get more. So once the plunger is at our 2 full scale divisions, all we have to do now is push this, and we push this down all the way. Our product is going to come out here. The key to this is making sure that this end is exactly where you want the product to be. In this case, I'm going to just dab a little out on my fingertip. I'm going to do that with I'm going to try it this way. And don't be afraid if when you push the plunger down, especially on a new syringe, you may find that there was an air pocket like I just found. It's all right. Just screw that thing down again. Get your full scale divisions. You may have to experiment with each pin how far you need to go. But what happens is it allows you to, some of them, there we go. Now, the main thing is you get this out in a clean manner. I wouldn't go with much more than like, you see how that's sticking? All right, it's a very sticky substance. This can be coated onto your flower to basically superpower your, if you're smoking a joint. It can also be used mainly to do just what I'm about to do right now. Just take a little bit. Like Winnie the Pooh, Pooh Bear and honey. Like Pooh Bear after honey. Anyway. That's what this is. You may also hear that called. That's a slang term, honey, for the dablicator. The nice thing about this is we also have our. I'm going to take my finger and get that tiny little bit of excess off. Always remember to replace the pin top. If you replace the top on this pin can be stored just about any place that's cool and dry. And I think that just about does it for today's episode of the Jamie Jim James Show. As always, please send us your comments, your suggestions, and mostly your questions about cannabis, because that's what drives our production schedule, is your questions about cannabis and how it can help you. So today we went over other methods of ingestion, like vaping in 2 different chemical forms, whether it's the cartridge or the screw-in cartridge, and the dry vape. The dry vape is a little bit more involved, but in the long run, much less costly. And we also talked about edibles in the form of gummies, the little candies, and we also showed you how the dablicator works. This is Jamie Jim James reminding you to remain in the love.